Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. It's a beautiful Saturday here. Got done running some errands and doing some chores and thought I would introduce you to a topic that we haven't touched on the channel here before, and that is a little overview on something that is hard to get information on, at least from my perspective, and that is the topic of Ford 4-speeds from probably early 60s to, I don't know, mid 70s or so. And so most of my stuff, a lot of my old stuff has Ford power, and I love having 3 pedals. And so because of that, I always have my eyes open for 4-speed parts or transmissions or whatever. The interesting part is that most people don't really know much about them. Even the people selling them don't usually know what they're selling. They just, they just sell it. So, can't get my camera to come back on. There we go. So, what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about what I know, and most of the space and interest for me is in the smaller bodied Fords like the Falcons in the V8 range. And now the Galaxie or Fairlane transmission has also entered into the picture because of the recent acquisition. And I have a top loader that is from Mustang. So I want to share what I know and give you a little insight, and hopefully it'll help you on your project or your quest as you try to find information. And it's out there, it's just in little chunks and pieces. And if I can help you, that's great. I can at least share what I know. It is not the ultimate encyclopedia of 4-speeds. There are so many people out there that have a lot of information and can share all kinds of things with you. But sometimes it doesn't tell you exactly what you need to know. So I'll give you my perspective on it and tell you what I know, and then you can continue to research it on your end. So let's take a look. So here's kind of where it started for me. I've had Falcons for a long time, and my early quest was to find a T10 which would work in a 64 Ranchero I was building. So at that time they were not that hard to find, at least not impossible. So I ended up finding one. This is a Borg Warner T10. This is not for a Falcon, but I will show you one for a Falcon. So hopefully you can see this. This is a Falcon T10. It is got the small bolt pattern on the 4 bolts that bolt to the bell housing. They came both ways. They came with that small bolt pattern, and they came with the farther spread out bolt pattern. This one just happens to be an early version, so it has the small bolt pattern. It is a little bit shorter than the Galaxie transmission. It ends just behind that cross member. You can hardly see it, but you see a little bit of the tail housing. And this particular one, while it's in something else, it's in a 32 frame, it still has the Ford shifter on it. So it has a Fomoco shifter. Sorry for the extra fur in the picture. It has a Fomoco shifter on it, the original one, and I'll show you a little better close-up of what that looks like over on the bench. But that's a Falcon T10. I didn't think they were super durable, but I mean, a lot of people have gotten tons of use out of them without breaking them. And I like the top loaders, but it's not the only option. So that is one version with all Ford type shifters and linkages and arms. The interesting thing about it is with a Ford shifter, the throw is really long. So it's got a lot of movement. I mean, that's high, that's neutral. Let's see if I can get it into first. There's first, neutral, and high, probably pretty close. Got a lot of room, a lot of motion it takes to make that happen. So what people did was they went to a Hurst shifter. So now I'll show you similar transmissions with a Competition Plus shifter on it. So if we stay on the T10, which is what this transmission is, even though it's the one that's going in the Fairlane, it's actually a Galaxie transmission. It has a Competition Plus shifter on it. So what that means is it's got a much shorter throw on the shift between gears. It's a lot tighter. It is, it shifts better than the Ford unit. And you know, the Ford units are probably fine in their day, but the Hurst shifters are just so much better. The shifter number, so here's where it gets tricky. If you're working on one of these cars, it's like, what are the part numbers? So the shifter on this, the last 4 digits are 6126. That's the number right here on the back of the part number, 6126. That's the number you want to look for. The shifter, the Competition Plus shifter for the T10 is the same one for the top loader. Both of those shifters are the same. Everything else is different, but the shift mechanism itself is the same. Where they differ between the different transmissions is in both the mounting plate, which is this piece here, that aluminum piece, or this one's actually steel on this transmission, but steel or aluminum, and all of the rods and levers here. All of those are specific to the transmission and the application of that transmission. So if you go to a swap meet and you find a 6126 shifter, that would probably be right for what you're doing if you're building one of these early Fords, or you know, kind of small bodied Fords. You just could be getting a shifter for a lot of other things as far as the arms and the length of the rods go. So that is a little bit of insight on the T10. If you compare the two T10s, the Falcon transmission overall is about 24 1/8 long. So that's from this part, the mounting part at the bell housing, to the end of the tail housing. That's a pretty short transmission. So 24 1/8 is what the Falcons are, as well as what the Mustangs are. So the Mustangs use that same basic length for a lot of them, at least the examples I have. But if you see the holes at the back of the tail housing, they move the shifter around. And that's why you really kind of have to know if your application uses that same shifter that these two applications do. No guarantee on that. That's something that I am not sure of. But these two transmissions, a Galaxie and a Falcon, both use that same shifter. Now, if I look at the Galaxie, the overall length on it is 27.5, and that's from the front of the case to the back of the tail housing. So you're about 3 inches longer, and the shifter, the pickup point for the shifter, is moved back a little bit more. So it's moved back to 15 3/4, and I think on the Falcon it's about 13 1/4. So 13 I think is what it is. So that means the distance from here to here on a Falcon is a little bit shorter. Why does that matter? Well, if your car is tight inside and the seat is close to that shifter, it can actually make a big difference when you try to get your 4-speed into your car without having to interfere with the seats. The other thing that helps that is by using a shifter like this, a Hurst, is the throw is much tighter. So you don't have as much swing of the lever to try to get it to fit. Those two things are big considerations if you're doing it and you're putting it in something that it didn't come in, or you're trying to figure out what pieces you need. So that's my insight on that. The shift rods and the arms are all different for all the applications. The shift setup that I bought for the transmission we have here, the top loader, I got from David Key. Now David Key is a 4-speed website. He has all kinds of stuff, probably everything top loader you could find or you would need, you could get at that website. Lots of stuff, lots of depth, and very knowledgeable, and the parts are accurate and no shenanigans on getting it. When you order it, it gets shipped. When you do a T10, I found it was pretty hard to be sure what shift levers, what shift rods, what all the pieces were that you needed. So I'm giving you this insight and I'm showing you these pictures because it's possible if you were building one of these, you might have to verify, is what I'm buying off of maybe an eBay or something like that actually the same as what I need. So as we look at this T10, you can see the tail housing is substantially different on the Galaxie. It's beefier in here for one thing. It's got this little dip here because of the way the shifter mechanism works. It's longer and the shifters move back a little bit. All important things to keep in mind as you are looking for your parts. Now, the shifters are not impossible to find. This is, one that I got at a swap meet. It's exactly the same as the other two. It is a piece that's in inventory. I have another Falcon top loader that I could use that shifter on, and it's, after you round up a couple, you start to figure out what pieces you need to get. The pieces are not super easy to come across, but they're not impossible either. It's just that it's not always easy to find somebody who knows what they have. So in the Falcon world, and in the let's use this transmission in something else world, the tail housings are all the same part number for the Falcons. They are not the same though. This is a tail housing that was used on a Mustang. Dimensionally, it's the same as the Falcon, but these bosses have been machined off. They were probably there at one time, but when they were used for a Falcon, they're taller. They're about 1.5 inches taller, and the shifter sits on top of them, and they're all tapped and drilled and tapped for bolts to hold the shifter on. When they put it in the Mustang, they moved the shifter back, produced a gazillion of them, and used the same casting and just machined off those bosses that were probably in the way of the linkage. They would not have come with a Hurst shifter. They would have come with a Ford shifter like this. This shifter would have sat something like that. Hopefully you can kind of see that. You can see how much gap there is underneath that, as only one of the bosses is in the right place. I have modified these tail housings with TIG welding a spacer on here and tapping it and aligning it so I could use it on a Falcon. The Falcon ones do come with all of these bosses tapped, the ones I've seen. So they are out there. They're not super common though. These are pretty common. And if you're a little crafty in the shop and you know somebody with a TIG welder, you can absolutely make it work. As far as the Ford shifters, there are more than I know. And so this particular one is for Falcon. This one right next to it, it's basically the same shifter. It is probably for a Galaxie It looks very similar to the bolt pattern here, looks very similar to the Galaxie, even though the Galaxie has a Hurst on it. This is probably for yet another something or other. It has an odd look to it. I'm guessing it quite possibly could be for the transmission tail housing, kind of like this. So it would sit, sorry to kind of flop you around, I'm kind of figuring it out on the fly. So it's gonna go like that, and that ends up being a shifter for a Mustang, and it gets the shift rod way back. So bottom line, I wanted to share what insight I had on these 4-speeds. I gave you a sliver of information. There are so many other people out there that have a wealth of knowledge. I do try to keep the documentation that I come across. This is for a Falcon. So this is a T10 with a Hurst Competition Plus shifter, and those are kind of the directions. If you look closely, and I'll get a little bit closer, hopefully you can see that. Those are some of the part numbers for all of the different rods and levers. So hopefully this was interesting, or at least helpful for some of you guys out there doing these. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next project.